We are back on the hook with Jason Arsenault. He's our marketing maverick. This is where we normally do our business tip, but well, we have more pressing issues right now because we have our guest on the line. It's great because we'll push back the business tip till later because we really want to have this guest on as soon as possible. So
yeah, couldn't be any better segue into this guest from our previous segment. We're talking about leadership, probably somebody who's spent more time in a leadership position and has been around other influential leaders from his time in the U.S. Army to his being a congressman in Florida. Our guest today is none other than the Colonel Allen West. Colonel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Jason. Josh, good to be with you all.
You know, I was sharing with the folks how I originally got connected with you. It was not through leadership or politics. It was actually hearing about you being an endurance runner and sending you a copy of my book.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I try to stay up on my Army fitness routine. Of course, now that I'm 55, I can't get out there and bust out those half marathons like I used to, but I still try to keep a good physical fitness regimen going.
Absolutely. Yeah, it keeps the mind right, especially when you're as busy as you are. We were talking about leadership earlier and what does or doesn't make a good leader. No doubt in your career you've met some unbelievable folks, and I know you've been a great leader at certain positions in your life. Are there any kind of key attributes that stand out to you for what makes a strong leader?
Yeah, my 22 years in the military, and ever and since, I kind of came to the understanding, and it was taught to me that leadership is based upon 5 points, and I call it the 5 C's. The first one is courage. The second one is competence. The third is commitment. The fourth is conviction, and the last one is character. And I think that whether it's the business world or military or what have you, when you have leaders that make those courageous and bold decisions, that are willing to, take in the information of those that are around them, but are not so concerned about swimming with the rest of the fish, but sometimes will swim against the current. That's what you need, and you need to have people that are competent in their decision making and thought process. Because as I told people, no one follows a dummy into a firefight, and I think it's the exact same thing in the business world, and that's where you look for those intelligent, innovative, and highly competent leaders. You have to be committed to a core set of principles and values, because if you don't have that basic foundation, then what do you really stand for? And something that my mother taught me growing up, that a man must stand for something or else he'll fall for anything. So commitment is very important, and then conviction. I mean, it is one thing that you say that you're committed to principles, but you must show that conviction. You must show that spirit and that enthusiasm to stand for those things when no one else will stand for it. And that's how you really win people over in the power of your presentation of your points and your principles and values, because of that strong conviction. And then the last thing is all about character. And what I always taught my soldiers and also my daughters is that character is doing what is right when no one's watching.
Yeah. Yeah, you combine that with the passion and the other attributes. I mean, it's definitely makes for an unbelievable leader and somebody that you can willfully follow. So, in your long career, I'm sure you've been under so many great leaders. Is there any one that stands out more so than others that you reflect on at times?
Well, I will tell you that the person, or the 2 gentlemen that had the most influence on my military career, one was my battalion commander when I was in the 1st Infantry Division. That was Lieutenant Colonel John R. Gingrich. And the other was my brigade commander when I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I just got a chance to be with him last Friday up in Cary, North Carolina. That was Colonel Denny R. Lewis. Wow. And these 2 men were the embodiment of leadership, with their passion, with their vision that they had, and their commitment to, the Army values and principles, and their competence as, brilliant artillerymen. And so, I just prayed that, one day I could reach those levels and I could be as a forthright leader as they were. And so, as a matter of fact, in my book, Guardian of the Republic, I bring out, what I learned from Colonel Denny R. Lewis, and he was just an incredible influence on me. But I think in the history of the world, I mean, I go back, I see, someone like Leonidas of Sparta, who,
Yep.
stood convicted and committed to the principles of Sparta. And the great quote, "Go tell the Spartans and strangers passing by that here obedient to their laws we lie." I mean, he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, and we see men and women still doing that today in our military. Of course, Alexander the Great, Hannibal, two fantastic visionary leaders. Hannibal I love because he led from the front, just the same as Alexander. But, without a doubt, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Harry Truman is one of my favorites. And then, of course, Ronald Reagan, when I look at the great leaders of our country.
Wow. Yeah, that's just a few there.
Yeah.
This country's obviously been founded by just unbelievable leaders. And what I found really interesting with some of the influential leaders in my life is that they stuck with me. Just as you said, you met back up with some of those that you had mentioned here recently. I had a scout leader that followed me through the rank of Eagle, and his popped up again and again in my life, and has continued to be a leader and a role model for me as I moved into being an adult and through my professional career. So I think that's unbelievable. One of the things that I'm hearing from you is you, especially with your military background, and I know a lot of our listeners who run businesses and companies and are trying to create morale and create a company environment in which can grow and flourish and have camaraderie. You've spent time leading men, oftentimes into battle. What does it take to breed other leaders? I think that's difficult for a lot of us business owners that maybe don't come from that type of training or that environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will tell you that the most important aspect of leadership is not what you accomplish, but what you enable others to accomplish. And so when I understand leadership, and I gave my life to Christ back in January of 1980, it's about servant leadership. It's not about, you being there to be served, but how can you serve others? And when you have that participatory type of leadership, when you have that leadership that sets the example, then others will rally to you. I tell you, one of the heartwarming things for me is that when I have young men that were cadets of mine back in 1991 to 1994 when I taught ROTC at Kansas State University, and they call me and tell me, "Hey, look, I just got promoted to lieutenant colonel. I just made colonel. I'm heading off to the War College. I'm commanding a brigade." That's what you want to produce. I mean, it's about the legacy that you establish and the lineage of committed and convicted and principled leadership. So I think that the most important thing is that if you're in a leadership position, it's about teaching, coaching, and mentoring the next generation of future leaders.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially in a business environment. You can't grow, you can't flourish if you're not bringing up kind of that next generation of people that are going to take your spot so that you can focus on bigger and better initiatives.
Yeah, you're right, and it's not about micromanaging, because in micromanaging you're not developing people.
Right.
But if you are there to, what I used to call it in my battalion, every day every soldier needed to understand what their task and purpose was, and that task and purpose had to come from my vision, and what I saw was our overall task and purpose, and my commander's intent, the purpose of our operations and what we're doing, the method by which we're going to achieve it, and the end state. People have to understand what the end state is. And when they get that, then you can make sure that all the way down to the newest, private, they understand their task and purpose and what their part is in that battalion or that company that they play.
Yeah, and what I think is frustrating at times is when people aren't on board with your vision. And I know, your time as a congressman, obviously taking a Democrat's chair, there had to be situations where you had people that you needed to get on your team who didn't initially agree with you. Do you have any advice or some stories on how you were able to overcome some of those situations?
Well, the thing is, once again, when you have you present your case, your argument, or whatever that is rooted in fundamental principles that people can say I don't like it, but it'll be very hard to disagree with it or to not accept it. When I'm out here in Dallas, Texas now with the National Center for Policy Analysis, but when I was back in South Florida, after losing the re-election by 0.46%, I mean there were people that were Democrats that saw me and when I go back maybe to visit like I did at Thanksgiving, they'll come up to me and say, hey, look, we didn't exactly like you, but we knew one thing about you. You would never lie to us. You would always tell the truth, and anything that you were saying was about your convictions. And people respect that. I mean, when you go back and you think about how Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill worked together, even though they were from definitely different parts of the political spectrum.
Right.
It was all about the common shared goal of what? To make sure we improve the quality of life for the American citizen and we keep them safe. And so I think that's what we have to get back to.
Absolutely. We're talking with Colonel Allen West here on The Hook. I think something else that I've gotten, because I sent out some emails or some stuff on social media, I got some questions from folks, some business owners about leadership that they thought you'd be great to answer. One of the things that we're seeing with this new generation of millennials is basically, for lack of better words, just a right of entitlement and not conforming to kind of chain of command and kind of the structure that is needed within a business environment so that everyone knows where their spot on the bus is. Do you have any experience in working with some of this younger generation or how to motivate or put in those proper chains of command and discipline?
Oh, sure. Let me tell you something. When I was a young lieutenant, if we saw, anyone that was above the rank of captain, we crossed the street to get away from them. As a matter of fact, we risked getting run over by a car instead of, running into a major, definitely a lieutenant colonel. I mean, because, that's just the respect that we had. But by the time that I was, coming out of the military 22 some odd years later, I mean, you had lieutenants that were coming around thinking they were ready to command a division. They were ready to be generals. They're the second coming of George Patton. But this is what I call the evolution of the Society of the Participation Trophy. When we started on the Little League fields and the soccer fields of not keeping score, telling everyone that they were great, and giving them the little plastic trinket that they can put up on their mantle to give them some sense of self-worth, now you see people that believe they're entitled to, that trophy. What do you mean I don't get a bonus? Everyone should get a bonus. And there is no such thing as exceptionalism, or there's no such thing as, that ultimate sense of service, sacrifice, and commitment. Now, I think that we are, combating against that. But let's be very honest. When you look at, certain political campaigns and people are following along because they hear about this is going to be free or that's going to be free, or as recently, Bernie Sanders said that health care is a right. It's a right to you as a human being. Well, when man starts to come down and believes that he can just give you the participation trophy, you move away from what Thomas Jefferson established, your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, to now people believing that they should be guaranteed happiness.
Straight talk with Colonel Allen West. Now, I know we want to talk a little bit about your current place where you're at with the NCPA, and we got to take a short break. So can you hang on with us just 1 minute while we take a quick break and come back? Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, we're coming right back. TheHookRadio.com is where you find us online. More of The Hook after this.
You could say I'm a little bit crazy. You could call...
We are back on The Hook. Very interesting conversation about leadership, and our guest is, I'm going to say this, that one of the best guests that we've had so far. Colonel Allen West is on with us. We've had some really great guests on, but the insight into leadership I find is magnificent because, well, the way I look at it is like Jason was talking about being an Eagle Scout earlier, and I saw that you had a chance to speak in front of some Eagle Scouts. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but do you think that that's a good platform for kids in the younger generation, like Jason was talking about earlier?
No, I think it's a great platform. It was actually a congressional representative, Kenny Marchant, and he has his annual recognition of Eagle Scouts in his congressional district. He's a former colleague, and he asked me to come over and speak to them about leadership. And so when I think about, these young men, and I got to be a Light Scout. I never made it the Eagle Scout. But when I think about
I won up on
men,
Colonel's.
You won up on me, brother.
I'll
but
take
when
it.
you look at these young men and how we're challenging them to go out and servant leadership, to come up with a project that they have to go out and serve others in the community. And they have to go out, merit badges. Isn't that an incredible thing? Merit badges, meritocracy, that you must go out and earn something, and there's pride in that. I think that's the basis of what we need to do once again in the United States of America, is get people to understand that there is an incredible sense of pride with you that you can attain when you go out and earn something yourself through your own hard work and merit, and not sit back, as we talked about in the previous session, waiting for someone to give you the little plastic trophy as a participant.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with the servant heart. I think so much more can be done when what we're doing comes from that place of serving, rather than wanting to obtain a certain thing. Leading with that heart, and that kind of great little segue into what you're doing now. I know you're now at the National Center for Policy Analysis. You want to maybe tell the listeners a little bit about that organization if they're not familiar?
Sure, absolutely, and I appreciate that. The NCPA, National Center for Policy Analysis, is a 33-year-old conservative free market think tank headquartered here in Dallas, and what we do is we look at federal government policy in the areas of tax, entitlement, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security reform, as well as health care, education, energy, and national security policy. We have about 19 folks, 3 in Washington, D.C., 16 here at Dallas, who are the direct employees and doing our policy research and analysis and getting those things out there that you can follow at www.ncpa.org. But then we also work with another 25 to 30 contributing researchers and writers, such as the Private Enterprise Research Center down at Texas A&M, or the Beacon Hill Institute at Suffolk University up in Boston, Massachusetts, which does a lot of our tax analysis center work, where we do analysis of tax plans and tax structure. So, please check us out, because I think one of the most important things is that we educate and inform the American citizenry on the solutions, the policy solutions, not just the politics.
Right. And I know there's currently a petition that you guys are doing to support our troops. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to get NCPA expanded into was national security, and we've got a great former Air Force officer who just earned his Ph.D., Dr. David Grantham, myself. And what we have developed, since we're in the National Defense Authorization Act development, and final vote will probably be in April, is a petition called Provide for the Common Defense Now. And again, you can go to ncpa.org and follow that. But there are 5 key points that we want to bring out. How do we build an effective and efficient military force for the 21st century battlefield? How do we transform our warfighting strategy so that we're winning on the battlefield? This is not about nation building, but it is going in and truly defeating the enemies. It's about having that type of focus. How do we reform our acquisition and procurement systems? Because if you want to talk about what is really hurting the DoD budget more than anything else, it's the cost overruns of weapon systems that many times the military does not want, but because there's a defense industry in a district of a member of Congress or a certain state, those things are getting pushed on the military. We have to look at how we reduce the size and scope of these higher headquarters, such as the Pentagon, such as the Central Command or the Pacific Command or whatever, because we need to be focused on those men and women that are out there on the battlefield, that we need to enable them to have success. And another part of that is, how do we make sure we have the right rules of engagement out there so that the enemy doesn't get the initiative. And lastly, we have to better compensate our men and women. A lot of people don't realize that our young soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines enlisting and coming into our military are paid, way below the poverty level. We're talking about $18,000 to $19,000, and some of them are coming in with families. And so what they immediately have to do, they go on government food assistance programs, and that's just abhorrent. So when you think about that, you think about how we're not doing well treating our veterans at the VA healthcare system. We got to do a little bit better with compensating those young soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, it's no wonder we're having such issues with PTS and getting soldiers reacclimated into society. If we're not taking care of them and giving them the support they need especially as they re-enter society, it's just it's unbelievable. We were just talking about
and that's leadership.
Yeah, right. And
That's leadership. Yeah.
For the ultimate sacrifice, and they lead all the way through their service, and then when they come home, nobody's doing anything to help them out, at least not to the extent that I think they should. We were talking earlier about a gentleman here in Texas who's doing a walk, a march. Actually, he's doing a 628-mile march. He's a veteran, and it's called Never Quit March. And he's going to be marching 628 miles to raise awareness and to help raise money and stuff for Lone Survivor Foundation and to, I guess, about post-traumatic stress. So it's
and that's important.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I know through the NCPA, you've just got there not too long ago, right? I mean, this is where you landed when you first came to Texas.
Yeah, January 2015.
Okay.
I had come out to speak for them in one of their lecture series in September 2014. Didn't know that they were looking for some a leadership change, and so October of 2014, they asked me to consider it, and we prayed about it as a family, and we made the move back to Texas because my last assignment in the Army was in Fort Hood.
Oh, okay. So it's not necessarily welcome, it's welcome back. That's good.
That's right.
This is the best place to be. So I want to ask you a couple other questions. So I know we had some listeners email in. One of the things probably one of the most commented things that I get from listeners is how active you are in social media. Are you managing your own account? Because bravo to you. I run a marketing firm, so we do a lot of social media monitoring and posting, and I've always been fascinated with the level of activity and accuracy that you seem to post with.
Well, if my name is on it, I wrote it. That's the most important thing. And wow. I do have, AlanBWest.com is the website. And I do have, an editor, an associate editor, and Michelle Hickford and Michelle Jesse. And they do a fantastic job. But it is my responsibility to, write at least 2 daily op-ed pieces. I normally do that at the end of the day for the following day. And, on occasion, I will see some, critical things that, I can weigh in on, policy or some current events. And so we use the Facebook and the Twitter to do that as well.
Yeah, it's super active on Facebook. Encourage listeners to go check them out. I think it's facebook.com/Alan B. West.
That's correct.
Yep. Always great stuff on there. I'm sure our listeners are also interested, as active as you are and as many things have you done, what are some of the things outside of work and serving that keeps you busy or that you're active and involved in?
Oh, sure. You have to, have your getaway time. And so, I do a good bit of, a little distance running. Now, it's down to, 3 to 5 miles, but that, keeps the head clear and that keeps me in shape. I mean, physical and spiritual fitness is very important. I'm a motorcycle rider and I'm a master scuba diver. Of course, having left South Florida, it's a little bit more difficult now to get, scuba diving in out here in North Texas. But, I just still try to get back to South Florida, get a couple of trips in, and maybe I'll get a trip out of, Dallas-Fort Worth to somewhere down in the Caribbean, like the Caymans or somewhere, get a little, weekend dive trip in. But avid reader, that's another thing. You have to stay up on the issues, and I love ancient military history. So that's pretty much, and I love to go out and shoot. I tell you, it's nothing better than to go to I go to the Garland public shooting range over in Garland, Texas, and bust some caps, put some lead down range. Nice. That's a liberating feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, there's perhaps nothing better than that. Well, I know your time is precious, and I appreciate all the time that you've spent with us. So I want to just thank you so much again for joining us on the show and shedding some light and some leadership skills to our listeners. I know that we'll get tons of feedback from that. So thank you so much for your time, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Jason, Josh, thank you, and anytime.
All right, that business tip that we talked about just a while ago is coming up. We'll do that next. What a great interview, right?
How am I going to outdo that?
I don't know.
I got to do a business tip on leadership after Colonel Alan West.
Yeah, you got to figure it out, bro.
All right.
More of The Hook up next.